Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan, our endeavor is to enlighten you about the current topics. And today, our topic is National Education Policy 2020 implementable? But before I will go to the main topic, I would like to inform you that today we all are celebrating World Television Day. In December 1996, the United Nations proclaimed 21st November as World Television Day, commemorating the date on which the first World Television Forum was held in 1996. Television continues to be the single largest source of video consumption. Though screen sizes have changed and people create, post, stream, and consume content on different platforms, the number of households with television sets around the world continues to rise. The interaction between emerging and traditional forms of broadcast creates a great opportunity to raise awareness about the important issues facing our communities and our planet. In recognition of the increasing impact television has on decision making by the bringing world attention to the conflicts and threats to peace and security, and its potential role in sharpening the focus on other major issues, including economic and social issues, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 21st November as World Television Day on 17th December 1996. World Television Day is not so much a celebration of the tool, but rather the philosophy which it represents. Television represents a symbol for communication and globalization in the contemporary world. On 21st and 22nd November 1996, the United Nations held the first World Television Forum, where leading media figures met to discuss the growing significance of television in today's changing world and to consider how they might enhance their mutual cooperation. This was done in recognition of the increasing impact television has on the process of decision making. Television was thus acknowledged as a major tool in informing, channeling, and affecting public opinion. Its impact and presence and its influence on world politics could not be denied. We wish a very happy World Television Day and hope that television will become more responsible and sensitive towards society. Now, coming to our main topic today, and that is National Education Policy 2020 is implementable? Never stop learning because life never stops teaching. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. The National Education Policy 2020, which brings about several major reforms in education in India. Prime Minister Modi said that this reform would transform the lives of millions of Indians. School complexes to be used for adult education courses after school hours. More focus on vocational studies in school level. NIOS to develop high-quality modules for Indian Sign Language. Preschool sections in Kendriya Vidyalayas. NCC wings in secondary and higher secondary schools under Ministry of Defense. Free boarding facilities in JNV, dedicated unit for digital and online learning. Minimum qualification for teaching 4 years integrated B.Ed degree. HECI common regulatory body for entire higher education. Education sector to get 6% of GDP, earlier it was 1.7%. Bagless days encouraged. 3 languages learned by children will be the choice of state, region, and students. Medium of instructions will be the local. No hard separation of streams for experiential learning in all stages. Contents will focus on idea application, problem solving. Curriculum content to be reduced. All higher education institutes to become multidisciplinary institutions. one large multidisciplinary institution in or near every district by 2030. Undergraduate degree course to have multiple exit options. Academic bank to store credits. Best universities to set up campuses in other countries. National Committee for Integration of Vocational Education, Lok Vidya. National Research Foundation, NRF, to be established. Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation, IITI, proposed. E-content in regional language. Financial autonomy to be given to 45,000 affiliated colleges. Importance of board exam to be reduced. Exam can be conducted twice a year. NTA to offer common entrance exam. Tag-based option for adult learning through apps, TV channels, etc. The National Education Policy 2020 may provide a runway for the education sectors to take off despite challenges posed on account of the pandemic. Announcement of the NEP attracts criticism from industry experts, but it may place India on the global map for sought-after educational heaven of the world. The National Education Policy 2020 replaces the old education policy, which was framed in 1986 and ushering in an era of new educational reforms. This is the first policy that seeks to unshackle students from the tyranny of administrative constraints with multiple choice, multidisciplinary learning, and multiple chances. Given that there are around 350 million Indians today in school-going or college-going age groups, the NEP calls for a large-scale implementation of a magnitude never before attempted anywhere in the world. The National Education Policy 2020 intends to bring 2 crore children who are currently not in schools back into the school system. This certainly requires a substantial amount of investment in classrooms and campuses. Our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the new National Education Policy focuses on how to think, while the education system till now in the country emphasized on what to think. And today, to discuss is National Education Policy 2020 implementable, we have a galaxy of expert, learned, qualified, experienced panel with us. I would like to invite my first guest, and he is Professor Dr. K. Ram Mohan Rao. Professor Dr. K. Ram Mohan Rao is presently serving as Vice Chairman, Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education, Government of Andhra Pradesh. He is the Nodal Officer of RUSA, Andhra Pradesh. He is also the Director of AP State Quality Assurance Cell. He served as Senior Professor, Department of Commerce and Management Studies, Andhra University. Professor Rao is a specialist in marketing management and service marketing. He guided 24 PhD students, wrote 11 books, and published 87 research papers in reputed international and national journals. He undertook 13 research projects funded by UGC and other public and private organizations. Professor Dr. Rao served in many administrative positions, such as Principal, AU College of Art and Commerce, Registrar of Andhra University, and member of Academic Council of IGNOU. He is one of the NAC assessors and served in the capacity of chairman, member coordinator in the peer teams. Professor Dr. Ram Mohan Rao received ET Now National Education Leadership Award as Best Professor in Marketing in 2013. The government of Andhra Pradesh presented him the State Best Teacher Award in 2015. Welcome, Professor Dr. K. Raman Rao on our show. Please unmute yourself. Professor Dr. K. Rama Rao, you have heard the report which I have read, and the report has given all the positive points of this national education policy. Now, the topic today and our question is whether this national education policy is implementable or not. So we would like to know, is national education policy implementable? Professor Dr. K. Rama Mohan Rao, please.
Thank you, Dr. Goel, and the respected panelists. So I'm very happy to take part in this discussion. First of all, we should definitely appreciate the government of India for thinking of introducing this national education policy after 3.5 decades. And definitely the efforts of Kasturi Rangan and his team in designing this policy are laudable, because as you have listed out the number of recommendations that they have made, it is definitely a marked departure from the past. So almost revolutionary changes they have proposed in the system. And the system which is present now, the Kasturi Rangan committee also identified what are the gaps in the system. They are having a very clear understanding on the realistic proposition of the Indian education system and the desire to make it really global and raise the standards of the education system to get acceptance world over. Definitely serious changes are necessary, and they have made that effort. But taking into consideration the existing scenario of education in the country, now the question that the forum raised is the question of all the education institutes and the people who are connected with the education system. Is it really implementable under the current circumstances in the country? If we look at the growth of the Indian education system, particularly, I will try to focus on higher education system. So during the last 7 decades, there is a substantial growth in number of institutions. From 6 universities, we have now got around 1,000 universities. And there are more than 45,000 higher educational institutions. And we could create access to millions of students in the higher education system and a lot many more in the school education system. So the expansion from just 6% of GER, now we could able to reach to 26% GER. So the expansion is really good in quantitative terms. But when you look at the quality aspects, now the gap is very visible, that many studies prove that 85% of the students who are coming out of the educational institutions are not employable. They don't have the level of quality that is expected. And they are turning out, we are turning out degrees, but not the potential candidates to say, develop a career for them. So because of that scenario, we have to introduce the serious changes in the system. On the other hand, if you look at every year, more than 6 lakh students, meritorious students, are going out of the country to pursue higher education and also to pursue career. So we are losing every year around 6 lakh students, highly meritorious students, to the rest of the world, particularly to the developed countries. On the other hand, we could able to attract only 10% of that from other countries to the country, to our nation. And also the market for our education system is from the third world countries, not developed countries. So now when the question comes whether it is implementable or not, in my opinion, the major requirement is the political will. Without political will, the implementation of this program is not possible. Political will in policy framework and implementation of the policy, as well as in supporting financially the system. So you have mentioned that at present it is 1.3 6% of GDP that is being invested in the education system, and the committee recommended it to 6%. It is a substantial hike. Whether the government really can afford to spend that much money on the education sector or not is a question. That is where political will is very important. And the second requirement is the overwhelming positive response from the institutions engaged in this system. So not just a positive response, a overwhelming positive response is required. And the third area which we have to look at is the industry support to the system. Unfortunately, in the Indian scenario, the industry institutional linkage or connectivity is not well established. Very few institutions have the industrial support, and we have, of course, less than 5% of the total institutes of international standard. They could able to attract the industry, they could able to convince the industry to get into it, but the 95% of the system is not really connected to the industry. Though for several decades we have been preaching and advocating for this kind of thing, but it is not happening. And again, it is the policy initiative of the government that will connect the industry with the educational institutions. So if these three are done, implementation is not at all a problem at all. But another issue is, though we have enhanced the capacity of the educational institutions, in many of the educational institutions, the admissions, particularly in higher education system, is not satisfactory. So it is limited to 50% on average. That means the students who passed out of the intermediate or 10+2, they are not showing keen interest in joining graduation programs or post-graduation programs. This leaves us to conclude that the programs that are being offered at present are not able to convince the youngsters, younger population, to get into admission and acquire those degrees, so they don't have enough confidence that they can build a good career. So that is, again, we have to work out on, they say, infusing confidence in the people that the present or the changed education system really provides a good career for them and good skills. And one of the, say, very important objectives or focused areas of the new educational policy is creating accessibility, and flexibility is the one very, say, highly emphasized flexibility of the things, and that is why they have proposed the Meru concept, multidisciplinary education and research universities. So converting them into that. I would like to say impress you with the policy of our state government, Andhra Pradesh state government, in addressing the challenges that are posed in the implementation of national education policy. Our government has introduced a few schemes which say takes straight away the recommendations of the national education policy. One is they have introduced a novel concept called Amma Odi, that is the mother's care, like in English. So to address the dropout problem, the government directly giving to the mothers of the deprived sections 15,000 per annum to allow our kids to go to the school. It is only to encourage. Fee and other things are free. That is a different story. Only to compensate the loss of the works that are being done by the child in the rural areas. That's what we cannot brand it as child labor, but children of 5 years age, they do support financially the families in the underprivileged sections. So because the mothers are not allowing, or the parents are not allowing they cannot afford to lose the revenue that they get. So the government has introduced this scheme. They are paying 15,000 a year. That is a very popular scheme. After that, the dropout percentage reduces significantly, and also enrollment in schools increases substantially. And another scheme is that the Vidya Devana and Vasar Devana, that is the education and the hostels. So the entire fee totally is reimbursed, and the hostel, say, expenses that are met 20,000 per year per student. So it is extended to almost millions of students, and that is now working on. The third policy that they have introduced is the past and present. They call it as Nadu Nedu. All the government schools were given infrastructural facilities on par with private corporate schools. A phase change totally is given, and all the teachers are given capacity building training for that. So in this way, the government has taken the decision to introduce English medium in government schools to all sections of the society at free of cost, protecting the interests of the local language. And also, the e-content is developed bilingual, local language as well as English language, and that is offered to all the schools and colleges. And for the higher education also, the curriculum is revised, and in the curriculum of undergraduate courses, non-tech as well as technical courses, we have introduced life skills, skill development programs, skill enhancement programs, and also made a 10-month mandatory internship for all graduates. And we made the industry to implement the Apprenticeship Act, wherein they are obliged to provide 25% on the job training to the students. And also we are involving the government departments and all to make it. Another move that we have made is we made community service project of 2 months compulsory for all the people. So these are the changes we have introduced that is making a significant impact. And we have asked all the institutes to start entrepreneurship, innovation and startup centers. And we are connecting it with the local industry, with those centers and all that. So these kind of changes can happen only when the political will is strong and the government is interested in this education sector and considers that this is the founder pillar for transformational change in the society, and allocate substantial amount, not considering as expenditure, but treating it as investment for the development of the society. In such case, I am sure that what all the recommendations that are made, everything is implementable in India. And India has a history that whenever there is a pressure, whenever there is a crisis, the entire population of the country bounce back and prove their say capacity to transform themselves. And we have witnessed so many changes, so many troubles that the Indian economy has faced, and we came out of it, including the pandemic that is existing, and we are sure that we will come out of that. So thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Rao. And according to Professor Rao, the National Education Policy 2020 is implementable. Only thing is that it requires a political will from all sections of the politicians, as well as the funds which has been recommended by Kasturi Ranjan Committee of 6% of GDP, which were earlier only 1.6%. If that is there, then this policy can be implementable. And he has also highlighted about the works or the changes they have done in Andhra Pradesh in the higher education system, that how they are providing the 15,000 rupees to the mothers so that the mothers can send the children to the school colleges, where although their fees are already waived off, as well as they are also providing to the government colleges and hostels full reimbursement of their education and staying, and other facilities, which especially about the one which is very interesting is the internship after all the graduates college degrees, and which is been made a compulsory for the corporates or the big industries as per the law, and which they are taking the apprentices, about 45% of the students, as well as the government organizations are also taking those students. So basically what Professor Rao says, according to him, this policy is implementable easily in India, because one of the reason is that Indians are very accommodating. They can bounce back very soon if there is any change, and when they can face this pandemic, definitely this education policy also will be successful. Only his emphasis is the political will and the funds which has been promised and recommended in this committee. Thank you very much, Professor Rao, for giving your opening remarks and saying that the policy is implementable. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Professor Dr. P. Subramania. Professor Dr. P. Subramania is the Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University. He is having more than 3 decades of experience in teaching, research, and administration. He did his MCom from Mangalore University in 1982, securing first rank with gold medal. He obtained PhD degree from Mangalore University in 1992 in the area of consumer behavior. He worked as professor, trainer, and consultant. He published 46 research papers in national and international journals of repute. He did postdoctoral research at Nottingham Business School, Nottingham Trent University, England, on HRD policies and practices. He also did a cross-national study of India and Britain under the Commonwealth Fellowship Scheme during 2001-2002. He received an international award entitled eLearn International Award 2003 from Scotland, UK, for his best research paper on trends and status of corporate e-learning and Indian experience. He also received the prestigious Devang Mehta National Award for Best Teacher in Human Resource Management in November 2009. He is down to earth, ready to listen, and eager to implement. Welcome, Professor Dr. P. Subramania on our show. Professor Dr. P. Subramania, you have already heard what Professor Dr. K. Ram Mohan Rao has mentioned. And according to Dr. Rao, Professor Dr. Rao, the National Policy 2020 is implementable, subject to political will and the funds. Now, we would like to know from you, is National Education Policy 2020 implementable? Professor Dr. P. Subramania, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lal, esteemed panelists. At the very outset, let me fully endorse the views of Professor K. Ramohan Rao, who presented in a very lucid and convincing manner. But here the topic is very, very, exciting for all of us, and it is very contemporary in nature. Is NEP 2020 implementable? The point here is, should we ask this question to ourselves? Yes, charity should always begin at home. If I ask this question, is it implementable? There could be 3 options. First one is, yes, 100%. There is no doubt about it. Second option could be, yes, sometimes, and sometimes no. The third possibility is categorically no. Okay, so we will be divided among 3 possibilities. As a matter of fact, I adopt a particular methodology here. Study the past, analyze the present, and project the future. Because implementation will take place only in the future or at the present. That means if you study the past, what happened to the implementation process of 1968 policy, 1986 policy, and 1992 program of action? We met with the mixed results. That means burden of proof will be examined in the light of the implementation process and strategies adopted in respect of NEP 1968, later on NEP 1986, and some tweaking which took place during 1992. But we could not achieve by 100% success. In a lighter vein, once Kushwant Singh said like this, okay, committee report and all those things, it is analogous to, it is just like going to a toilet. There will be a sitting, obviously there will be a report which will be ultimately flushed away. But in this case, it did not happen. NEP 2020 would see the light of the day. Therefore, we are really blessed and we are really grateful to Dr. Kasturangan and his team, and also our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, for taking up that kind of firm determination to launch it and implement it. Now, as far as implementation in both letter and spirit in the past is concerned, with respect, I told you already, 1968, 1986, and 1992 program of action, we experienced only mixed results. Hence, it's very natural, or not surprisingly, there is suspicious outlook, a kind of cynicism and skepticism, which have been crept in due to half-hearted implementation in the past. That we have to acknowledge. History may or may not repeat, with caution. But definitely there are three key challenges here. One is mindset of the people. When I say people, it includes you and I, the bureaucratic machinery, the teaching, non-teaching staff, students, alumni, and all stakeholders. So minds of the people must be properly and timely addressed. Number one challenge. Second one is willingness to implement in both letter and spirit. Otherwise, we'll slip back to our old syndrome of half-hearted implementation. The third one is preparedness. Fine. Here efforts have been done to address the mindset of the people. They are convinced. People say that, yes, this NEP 2020 has got realistic, radical, transformative proposals. And that will definitely going to change, that will definitely change what you call the entire landscape of not only the school structure, but also the higher education structure in India. Therefore, there are no two opinions about it. Mindset will be addressed. Willingness, yes, we are not only willing, we are very much eager. We have created a fire in our belly and mind to implement it as early as possible, but I am very cautious that safety first, speed next, based on our past experience of half-hearted implementation. Then preparedness, yes, I strongly believe in the fact that never put the cart before the horse. First of all, we have to create both conducive and congenial atmosphere to successfully implement the radical and realistic and transformative proposals of NEP 2020. No doubt about it. Now, when you talk about implementation, again, I am hitting the bullseye. There could be one possibility of tardy implementation, slow implementation. For example, I am very much convinced that COVID-19 pandemic cannot halt the process of implementation. It can only slow down the process. Then another one is inadequate implementation. That means partial implementation or piecemeal implementation. We have to be very, very cautious and we have to guard against this kind of danger. The third possibility is improper implementation. It means we create a kind of disequilibrium and we will not be able to handle the disequilibrium. It means it's very, very important to observe the fact that if there is any change in any corner of the system, there should be parametrical or corresponding change in other parts of the system also in order to maintain the delicate equilibrium. Otherwise, there will be imbalance. Sometimes it will do more damage than any good. Therefore, we have to be extra cautious to see that we are taking proper and adequate steps to implement in toto with a sense of purpose, pride, and direction. Another possibility could be untimely implementation. Therefore, every one of us should bear in our mind the timeline fixed. Because, for example, GR, gross enrollment ratio in higher education, should be attaining what you call 50% by 2035, after 15 years. because of this 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3 mechanism. Therefore, it is realistic. Our expectation is realistic. Therefore, we have to stick onto the timeline. Then if there is any unpreparedness in any corner, it should be handled mercilessly by everyone because it's a collective responsibility. So ultimately, never put the cart before the horse. And another word of caution here, every time it is ringing in my mind is NEP 2020 is merely a policy document, remember. It is not a law. So it means there should be corresponding changes in our, in our state, we have got Karnataka State University Act 2000. Likewise in Andhra, in every state, we have to incorporate proper and adequate changes in this act and other related matters. Legal changes or statutory amendments must take place, not at a snail's pace, but as quickly as possible in order to activate the machinery. And another thing is, it is in the concurrent list of the Indian Constitution. We know it very well. That means central government is highly motivated, committed, and it wants to make things happen. But central government alone cannot do it because state government should extend the support. Thanks to the efforts of our higher education in Karnataka state, Minister of Higher Education has already constituted a task force. And my university has undertaken a step to constitute a task force, and we have already constituted 9 subcommittees and have given a timeline of 3 months. They have to come out with a report which will highlight implementable action programs. So we are very serious as one of the state universities in Karnataka. Every time one step ahead should be our dictum. 5 words will make a punchline. Every time one step ahead. It means continuous learning, which will lead to continuous improvement, and eventually we'll experience what you call continuous development. It should happen in the entire implementation or monitoring process, because I strongly believe that nothing succeeds like success, but at the same time, nothing fails like failure. We have to draw lessons from the half-hearted implementation of 1968-1986 policy, and we should always continuously build on the success, and we should wipe out all negative thoughts in the hearts and minds of all people involved in the entire rally team. So as things stand today, Honorable Prime Minister and his team are committed, determined, and firmly grounded to implement NEP 2020 in a phased manner. Therefore, I fully endorse the views of Professor K. Ramohan Rao. Evidences in the form of democratic, participative, consultative, inclusive, and transformative leadership of central and state governments, then formation of task forces and subcommittees with time-bound and target-oriented implementable action programs, then dedicated rally team to make things happen, flexible mindset for permitting mid-course corrections if needed, then of course, periodic monitoring of the implementation process based on the plan, do, check, action cycle, are bearing sufficient testimony to trust the implementation strategies and processes with a sense of purpose, pride, and direction. Therefore, I am 100% confident that it will be implemented, but overconfidence is dangerous. We have to make necessary precautionary measures, and 1 step forward, 3 steps backward. Thank you, Mr. Lal.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. P. Subramania. According to him, this National Education Policy 2020 is definitely implementable, subject to that we should not be overconfident. And he has given the details that how the past experience has taught us. He said that about 1968 and 1986 policies, as well as some corrections in 1992 in the previous education policies, in which they were not implemented with full heart. They were implemented half-heartedly, and that's why they were not successfully, we can't term it that they were very successfully implemented. Similarly, in 2020 policy, if we will be doing it, it has to be with full confidence, with full heart, with full willingness. We have to do it. And he has jotted out all the details how the things can be done. He has also mentioned that the Karnataka and especially his university has already set up the committees, which these committees are making a report that how this implementation of NEP 2020 can be done. without any hitches, without any problems. So they are making a roadmap of implementing in his university, that is the Mangalore University. And according to him, this is a very good policy, because they have not given the time limit, such an unrealistic time limit. Rather, the time limits and given in this policy is so realistic that one can achieve, as about the 50% GR he mentioned, that is up to 2035, which is achievable. Otherwise, if it would have been less, then definitely not. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, for giving your detailed views about the Education Policy 2020, and you are very sure that it can be implementable, subject to the coordination, cooperation, and willingness of central government and state governments and all the stakeholders who are involved in this. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Professor Dr. G.C. Saxena. Professor Dr. G.C. Saxena is the former Vice Chancellor of Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar University, Agra. He was also the former Vice Chancellor of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Awadh University, Ayodhya, Uttar Pradesh. He was the principal of RBS College, Agra. He is the founder president of Indian Councils of Chemists. Under this, he organized 7 international conferences outside India in Paris, Dubai, Bangkok, Singapore, etc. He did his MSc in chemistry from Agra University in 1960. He did PhD in chemistry in 1976 from Agra University. His more than 100 papers are published in reputed international and national journals. Under him, 50 students did PhD. He was awarded Atma Ram Award along with 5 lakhs rupees for writing chemistry book in Hindi by then President Pranab Mukherjee at President House. Welcome, Mr. Professor Dr. Girish Saxena on our show. Professor Dr. Girish Saxena, please unmute yourself. Professor, please unmute. Please unmute yourself. You have to unmute. Yes, yes, please. Professor, okay. Yeah, yes. Professor Saxena, you have heard what Professor Dr. K. Ram Mohan Rao as well as Professor Dr. P. Subramania has spoken about the National Education Policy 2020. And both of them are of view that this policy is implementable, subject to, according to Professor Dr. Rao, is the political will as well as the funds. And according to Professor Dr. P. Subramania, a coordination between the central government and the state government, as well as all the stakeholders' willingness. Now, we would like to know from you, is National Education Policy 2020 implementable? Professor Dr. Girish Saxena, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lal, and learned other panelists. सबसे पहले मैं बधाई देना चाहता हूं लाल साहब आपको कि आपने इस प्रकार का कार्यक्रम आयोजित किया है। इस प्रकार के कार्यक्रम ही नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को इम्प्लीमेंट करने में सहायक सिद्ध होंगे, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। प्रोफेसर सुब्रमण्या ने एक बात ये कही थी कि 3 पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं। एक ये कि 100% NEP इम्प्लीमेंटेबल है, दूसरी ये कि कुछ केसेस में इम्प्लीमेंटेबल है, कुछ केसेस में नहीं है, और तीसरी ये कि कैटेगरिकली हम नो कह सकते हैं कि ये NEP इम्प्लीमेंटेबल नहीं है। मैं आपका ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहूँगा कि वर्तमान में क्या स्थिति बनने वाली है। ये पॉलिसी NEP जो है वो बहुत ही गहन विचार विमर्श के बाद तैयार की गई है। आपको ज्ञात होगा कि लगभग 2 लाख ग्राम पंचायतों ने, 11,500 स्थानीय निकायों ने, नगर निगम और निकायों ने, और लगभग 600 जिलों से जो 2.5 लाख सुझाव आए थे, उनको 5 वर्ष तक कंसीडर करने के बाद ये नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी दी गई है। इतनी होलिस्टिक नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी जिन उद्देश्यों के साथ बनाकर प्रस्तुत की गई है, मैं समझता हूं कि ये पहली बार हुआ है। 1968 में और 1986 में जो पॉलिसी आई, उन पर इतना गहन विचार विमर्श और लोगों के सुझाव भी आमंत्रित नहीं हो पाए थे। और इस पर कमेटी ने विचार करके और भारत सरकार ने ये विचार निश्चित रूप से बड़ी गंभीरता से किया कि ये पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाए। और मुझे लगता है कि जो कुछ इसमें कहा गया है, उसके लिए जो साधन और स्रोत आवश्यक होंगे, वो राज्य सरकारें और केंद्र सरकारें निश्चित रूप से प्रस्तुत करेंगी। मैं दो बातों की ओर आपका ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहूंगा। एक ये कि ना तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि ये पॉलिसी 100% इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाएगी, क्योंकि इसमें कुछ सुझाव ऐसे हैं जिनको इम्प्लीमेंट करने में बहुत कठिनाई का सामना करना पड़ सकता है। और ना ही हम ये कह सकते हैं कि ये पॉलिसी कैटेगरिकली नहीं इम्प्लीमेंट होगी, क्योंकि ये संभव नहीं है। इसमें बहुत सारे प्रस्ताव ऐसे हैं जो निश्चित रूप से अच्छे ढंग से इम्प्लीमेंट किए जा सकते हैं। मैं इन दोनों के कुछ बिंदु आपके समक्ष रखना चाहूंगा। अब इस पॉलिसी के अंदर जो कुछ बातें बहुत अच्छी कही गई हैं, सबसे पहले जो विद्यार्थी को ये चॉइस दी गई है कि वो अपनी डिग्री प्राप्त करते समय किसी भी स्टेज पर एग्जिट कर सकता है। अगर वो पहली साल में एग्जिट करेगा तो उसको सर्टिफिकेट, दूसरी साल के बाद एग्जिट करेगा तो उसको डिप्लोमा, तीसरी साल के बाद अगर एग्जिट करेगा तो उसको डिग्री, और अगर 4 साल का पूरा कोर्स कंप्लीट करेगा तो उसको ऑनर्स डिग्री प्रदान की जाएगी। ये एक बहुत अच्छी और नई शुरुआत इस पॉलिसी के अंदर की जा रही है, मुझे लगता है। दूसरा, इस पॉलिसी के अंदर जो कुछ मिशंस बनाए जाने हैं और फाउंडेशन बनाए जाने हैं, जैसे नेशनल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन, ये एक बहुत अच्छा कदम है और ये सरकार स्वयं इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकती है। आपको ज्ञात होगा कि हमारे देश के अंदर रिसर्च के ऊपर सरकार की ओर से जो सहयोग प्रदान किया जा रहा है वो बहुत कम है। केवल 0.7% जीडीपी का इसको रिसर्च को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए यहाँ पर दिया जा रहा है, जबकि इजराइल जैसे छोटे देश में 4% जीडीपी से ज्यादा, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, जर्मनी में, इन सब साउथ कोरिया, इन सब कंट्रीज के अंदर जो रिसर्च के लिए ग्रांट दी जा रही हैं वो जीडीपी का बहुत ज्यादा परसेंटेज में है। तो ये काम केवल सरकार अपने विल पर कर सकती है, जो पॉलिटिकल विल पर बात की जा रही थी। इसी प्रकार से नेशनल टेक्नोलॉजी मिशन की स्थापना की बात की जा रही है। आज इस देश के अंदर 40 करोड़ लोग इंटरनेट का उपयोग कर रहे हैं। आज इस देश के अंदर 100 करोड़ से ऊपर लोगों के पास मोबाइल फोन्स और लैपटॉप्स हैं। तो ऐसी स्थिति में आगे चलकर सारा कुछ डिजिटाइजेशन के ऊपर निर्भर रहने वाला है। और इस पेंडेमिक के अंदर आपने ये देखा कि स्कूल्स और कॉलेजेस में जितनी शिक्षा और क्लासेस हो रही हैं वो डिजिटलाइज या वर्चुअल हो रही हैं। तो ऐसी स्थिति में इसको आगे बढ़ाने की जो विचार इस पॉलिसी के अंदर रखा गया है वो भी बहुत अच्छा है, और ये भी काम केवल सरकार बिना किसी कठिनाई के कर सकती है, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। अब कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं, जैसे इसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात यह है कि सारी पॉलिसी को इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए 6% जीडीपी का शिक्षा के ऊपर व्यय करने की बात कही जा रही है। अभी तक केवल 1.7% या 1.66% के करीब जीडीपी का शिक्षा के ऊपर व्यय किया जा रहा है। और अगर ये 6% जीडीपी का जो मांग भी सारे विद्यार्थियों और शिक्षकों की ओर से बहुत दिनों से की जा रही है नहीं उपलब्ध कराया गया, तो ये पॉलिसी के कुछ प्रावधानों को इम्प्लीमेंट करना अत्यधिक कठिन होगा, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। एक और पॉइंट जो इसमें कहा गया है कि जीआरई को 2035 तक 50% करने का विचार है, जो लगभग 27-28% ही अभी है। और इसमें सबसे बड़ी बात है कि क्या ये संभव है, क्योंकि हम विचार करें कि जीडीपी को जीआर को 50% करने के लिए कितने कॉलेजेस के और यूनिवर्सिटीज की आवश्यकता होगी। लगभग 2.5 करोड़ नए विद्यार्थी जब 2.5 करोड़ विद्यार्थी जब नए एजुकेशन एडमिशन जिनका होगा, तब जाकर ये 50% जीआर होगा। और मुझे लगता है कि ये बहुत बड़ा काम है। आज से ही, इसी वर्ष से, जब तक हम नए कॉलेजेस और नई यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं खोलेंगे, तब तक ये संभव नहीं होगा। और नए कॉलेजेस और नई यूनिवर्सिटीज बनाने के लिए जो फंड्स चाहिए, उसमें इंडस्ट्री का पार्टिसिपेशन, सरकार की सहायता और प्राइवेट ऑपरेटर्स की सहयोग की आवश्यकता होगी, ऐसा मैं समझता हूं। और ये बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट काम है, जिसको अभी से सोच विचार करने की आवश्यकता है। एक रिकमेंडेशन ये की गई है कि कम से कम 100 मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी इंटीग्रेटेड हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस बनाए जाएंगे। और इस सब पॉलिसी को इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए, वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एक्सिस्टिंग यूनिवर्सिटीज में और नई यूनिवर्सिटीज में उपलब्ध कराना होगा। मैं आपसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि आज की स्थिति में जो स्थिति है, उसमें 80% एजुकेशन हम प्राइवेट पार्टनर्स के द्वारा या प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस के द्वारा दिया जा रहा है। और इन प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज एंड कॉलेजेस की जो हालत है, उसको आप सब ने देखा होगा। हमारे बीच में डॉक्टर सुब्रमण्य बैठे हुए हैं, वाइस चांसलर साहब, और मैं भी 2 यूनिवर्सिटीज का वाइस चांसलर रहा हूं। क्या सुविधाएं उन यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस के अंदर उपलब्ध हैं, किस प्रकार से वो यूनिवर्सिटीज चल रही हैं, केवल कमर्शियल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, और उनके माध्यम से इस गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा को प्रदान करना कितना संभव होगा, ये एक विचारणीय विषय है। और इसलिए ये आवश्यक है कि उन यूनिवर्सिटीज में, उन कॉलेजेस को इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की दृष्टि से, अच्छे टीचर्स की उपलब्धता के साथ, उनको प्रॉपर ग्रेड देने के साथ साथ उनके अंदर विल और उनकी ट्रेनिंग करने की भी आवश्यकता होगी। और ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा काम होगा, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। एक बात इस एनईपी में कही गई है कि लोकल लैंग्वेज के अंदर ही बच्चों को शिक्षा प्रदान की जाएगी। ये अच्छी बात है, की जानी चाहिए। लेकिन मेट्रोपॉलिटन सिटीज में स्कूल्स के अंदर किस प्रकार से एक लैंग्वेज के अंदर ये शिक्षा दी जाएगी, लोकल लैंग्वेज में, ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट विषय है और जिसमें कठिनाई आने की आवश्यकता है। जैसे दिल्ली, बेंगलोर, मद्रास, बॉम्बे, कोलकाता, इन सब जगह पर ऐसे स्कूल्स हैं जहां पर भिन्न भिन्न क्षेत्रों के भिन्न भिन्न लैंग्वेज वाले बच्चे पढ़ने आते हैं। तो किस लैंग्वेज में ये शिक्षा प्रदान की जाएगी, ये भी एक समस्या खड़ी होने वाली है। और इस समस्या को सुलझाने के लिए और इसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए क्या करना होगा, इससे विचार करने की आवश्यकता है। मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि डॉक्टर सुब्रमण्या ने कहा और डॉक्टर राव ने जो कहा, पर्टिकुलरली डॉक्टर सुब्रमण्या ने बताया कि हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी ने टास्क फोर्स बना दिया है। 3 महीने के अंदर हमने रिपोर्ट मांगी है और हम एक स्टेप फॉरवर्ड जा रहे हैं। लेकिन मेरा अनुभव ये कहता है, जहां जहां मैं जा रहा हूं और बात कर रहा हूं, कि अधिकांश यूनिवर्सिटीज में अभी तक एनईपी के प्रति कोई जागरूकता उत्पन्न नहीं हुई है, कोई स्टेप्स अभी नहीं लिए गए हैं, और ना ही इस दिशा में कोई विचार विमर्श गंभीरता के साथ किया जा रहा है कि हम ये पॉलिसी कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे। तो ऐसी परिस्थिति में आप कैसे सोच सकते हैं कि सरलता के साथ, सहजता के साथ ये पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाएगी। एक उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा। इस पॉलिसी के अंदर ये प्रावधान था कि 25 सितंबर तक हर यूनिवर्सिटी और कॉलेज एक सेमिनार वेबिनार कम से कम करेगा इस NEP के बारे में, और इसके बारे में ये एक रोड मैप बनाएगा कि कैसे इस प्रकार से किस प्रकार से हम NEP को इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं। अधिकांश यूनिवर्सिटीज में और अधिकांश कॉलेजेस में इस दिशा में कोई महत्वपूर्ण काम हुआ है ऐसा मुझको नहीं लगता है। मैं समझता हूं कि जो डॉक्टर सुब्रमण्या ने एक उदाहरण प्रस्तुत किया है, इसको सभी यूनिवर्सिटीज को और सभी कॉलेजेस को फॉलो करना चाहिए। मेरी दृष्टि में ये पॉलिसी बहुत गंभीरता के साथ सोच विचार करके प्रस्तुत की गई है। इसमें केंद्र सरकार की बहुत रुचि है और हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने इस बात को महसूस किया है कि आवश्यकता इस समय इस शिक्षा के क्षेत्र को सुधारने की है, क्योंकि हमारे को अगर विश्व गुरु बनना है तो सुपर नॉलेज पावर पहले बनना पड़ेगा, और सुपर नॉलेज पावर बनने के लिए हमको जो प्रयास करने हैं उन प्रयासों को इस न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में लिस्ट किया गया है। मैं समझता हूं कि इस दिशा में हमको आगे बढ़ना चाहिए और ये पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंट हो सकती है अगर जो साधन है और जो स्रोत धन के हैं वो उपलब्ध कराए जाएं, GDP को 6% किया जाए कम से कम, और अभी से जिस गति से यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस नए खोले जाने हैं, एक्सिस्टिंग कॉलेजेस में सुधार किया जाना है, उसमें सुधार किया जाए। जो नेशनल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन बननी है उसके माध्यम से रिसर्च को आगे बढ़ाने का प्रयास किया जाए। जो नेशनल वोकेशनल फोरम बनना है उसको बनाकर वोकेशनल एजुकेशन को आगे बढ़ाया जाए, तो ये पॉलिसी निश्चित रूप से इम्प्लीमेंट की जा सकती है। जो गंभीरता की आवश्यकता है वो हमें अभी से देनी होगी, और मैं समझता हूं कि पॉलिसी 100% इम्प्लीमेंट हो सकती है अगर राज्य सरकारें, विश्वविद्यालय और केंद्र सरकार गंभीर है। तो जो शिक्षक हैं, जो कुलपति हैं, जो विद्यार्थी हैं, उन सबको भी गंभीरता के साथ इस पॉलिसी को लेकर आगे बढ़ाना होगा। लाल साहब बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने मुझे अवसर दिया।
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Saxena, for giving your views, strong views about the education policy. And according to Dr. Saxena, this policy is implementable because unlike the earlier policies of 1968 and 86, this policy is a holistic policy where more than 2.5 lakh suggestions were taken from the panchayats, from the local bodies, from the district authorities, from the universities. And after considering them for almost 5 years, the recommendations were given, and the committee has made the recommendations, and which our Honorable Prime Minister accepted it and put it forward as a policy. And according to him, there are many points which says that it is 100% implementable, but there are few which are not easily implementable, and he has listed those points also. So according to him, it is possible only if the central government, state government, universities, vice chancellors, the teachers and the students, everyone give their contribution, will be with this policy, which is, according to Professor Dr. Saxena, is a very, very good policy, and it is going to make our country as a world leader of Vishwaguru soon if we will implement this with later in spirit. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Saxena, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and my next guest is Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal is the former professor of marketing, innovation and management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is president of Indo-Gulf Marketing Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow, Boston, EFMD Fellow, Paris, and British Council Fellow, London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal on our show. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, you have heard what Professor Dr. Rao, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, as well as Professor Dr. Grish Saxena has mentioned in their statements, and they are very clear that this policy is implementable only subject to few things. One is about the will, political will, another is the funds, and third, the state government, central government, and all the stakeholders to be there. And according to Professor Dr. Saxena, it is not 100% implementable, but yes, majority of the clauses in this or the things are implementable if done properly. So now I would like to know, just a minute, please.
Dr. Saxena.
Yeah. One moment, please. I have to mute Dr. Yes. Now we would like to know, is National Education Policy 2020 is implementable? Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lal. I have been a part and fortunately very, very happy to be a part of many of your shows. But probably today the show will go down as one of the best shows on the most important aspects for several reasons. Number one, you have such an experienced person like Dr. Grish Saxena, who is like teacher's teacher here and who has given his views. And number two, contemporaries like me and Professor Subramania as a part of it. And then the young star, the wonderful man, Dr. Rao, who is the star, the hope, Vice Chancellor for me in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his delivery, and most important, in terms of his humanity. Dr. Rao, I know him and how wonderful he is in terms of whatever he does, wherever he goes, he creates a new standard. So thank you very much for this wonderful panel that you have given to us. Let me say three things here before I start my own views. Number one, that in any situation, a policy is always a curate's egg. It is never 100% implementable, never. In fact, otherwise it would have given more if it was 100% implementable. So even if we are able to implement any policy up to 75% of the entire policy, it is considered as a super success of that particular policy, number one. Number two is that the percentage should be almost 90% in the form of the core aspects of any policy, because each and every part of the policy is not equally important. There is a basic, there is a core, and then there is an augmentation. So from that particular point of view, I think this particular policy's core is 100% implementable, and our esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor Subramaniam, has shown already through his example, through his role modeling example, that universities can do that, and he has already started in that particular direction. As far as the policy of education in this country is concerned, as we know, it is both central and state subject. And I'm really, really grateful today to be here that Dr. Ram Mohan Rao has also mentioned the state initiatives in that particular context. So it shows that this particular policy has the support, the blessings, the passion of state governments also. So it is not just one person from Delhi sending diktats to other states and they are just following. State universities are also understanding the value of it. The second part I would like to say here is that devil is always in the details. Devil is never in the policy. It is always in the details. So how do we handle a devil? Now, let me take this particular question and begin from my own weakness. And my weakness is that I see things more as a consultant. How do we solve a problem of the dimension that we are seeing here? So Professor Saxena, who is, my very, very respected teacher, has already shown this kind of thing is very, very concerning and very, very useful to even pay attention to. So how do we give a consultant approach to this thing? Let me shift the focus from the macro level to the micro level. And that micro level will be the university or the college where this particular policy is to be implemented. So if we go into any implementation of the policy, the first change that any particular unit has to make is to change the structure of that unit itself. Now that particular unit is, in our case, university. So in my opinion, that university structure needs to be changed immediately. And this structure has to come down from the chancellor level to the vice chancellor level, and from the vice chancellor level to a new position which I would like to suggest, and that I will call it COO, Chief Operating Officer. All said and done, academic officers, academicians are not great administrative officers. They're great academics. But when it comes to management and the administration, I'm afraid from my own experience and from the experience of many of my friends, they are not necessarily great management leaders. They are very, very good thought leaders. They are very, very good research leaders, but not necessarily the academic administration leaders. So how do we do that? I think all universities now must have one more position, and that position should be COO or CEO, whichever you may prefer. Whether you may have Chief Executive Officer or it may have COO as Chief Operating Officer. Who will be that person? That particular person will be almost similar to the Vice Chancellor. So Vice Chancellor will take care of the academic, will be taking care of the research, will be taking care of the academic accreditation, academic quality, standards, all that. But the COO and CAO, that or CEO, they will take care of some of the aspects coming out of this particular policy. And I'll come back to that particular point in a minute. So that is point number one. Point number two is, as Professor Saxena very, very correctly, and both Professor Saxena as well as Subramanian Sahab highlighted, that this feature of multiple entry, multiple exit is going to give a new headache to the universities. The people who have taken admission are not necessarily going to be the number who will graduate from the same university. They may start with one university and they may end up graduating from another university because they have a choice. They can carry the credit bank and they can also go from one university to another, which means original structure of thinking that the someone who has taken admission will also graduate with us and therefore we are safe for the next 3 or 4 years. That particular assumption is now only an assumption and perhaps going to be blown away very, very quickly. So how do we do that? This person, administrative leader, which I mentioned, will also take into account the customer satisfaction, satisfaction of the students, satisfaction of the students from the auxiliary point of view, not from academic point of view only, but from auxiliary point of view. That is the facilities, environment, interaction, counseling, many other things with which a person interacts with them, and maybe the infrastructure, maybe any other, but not core course, not the teaching. That will be taken care of by the teachers. So therefore, that particular point will also be taken care of. And why should a student not stay in a college and university which takes care of their sampurna development, complete care, rather than just great teaching or great teachers and all other things poor? So therefore, this is the second change I would like to make. The third change which I would like to suggest is that all professors, and I'm sorry if I'm making anybody offended, that's not my objective, but I'll still stick to the point which I'm going to make. All professors in India now must be appointed only for a contracted period and not for the lifetime. Because what happens the moment you have a contract period for them, and this contract period could be 5 years, could be 10 years. And the contract does not mean it will end. It only means it is renewable. And this is renewable based on your ability to get along with the new policy environment, educational policy environment, which is being set up. Now, right now, what happens that a person is appointed in a university or a college, and that person becomes almost like lifetime employment for that particular university. That is not a very, very good idea, because the environment of that time, environment of this time are vastly different. So therefore, I would say that contract appointment, to my mind, is the move. Having said that, we should also be taking into account the internal customers. And these internal customers are our own faculty. That how do we take care of them in terms of their welfare, in terms of their salaries, in terms of their growth, in terms of their own satisfaction with the university. Right now, this entire thing has been left to the department chair or to the dean. To my mind, again, these two people are not set up. They are not trained to take care of the internal customers. And Professor Ramohan Rao, who himself is a very, very well-known professor of service marketing and understands the value of internal customer in terms of marketing services effectively. If we are marketing services of education effectively, then there should also be effective marketers within the company. And from that point of view, I believe that dean and department chair, they have been given a wrong responsibility in the right time, and that we have today, and which is the new policy, education policy environment. So this is another thing I would like to say. Then another thing I would like to say is about the staff members. Now, these staff members who are support staff members, these staff members must also be of a higher caliber, of a higher responsiveness, of a higher connection with the ecosystem in which the university is working, which means that we should also be recruiting them with the same care and caution as the corporate world does, from terms of employing them. And to my mind, even the existing staff members should also be going into a reorientation program, a retraining program, so that they play along. Remember that the teacher, accounts office, registrar office, degree office, so many offices with which we interact. Now, these people respect teachers. Without doubt, they respect teachers. But then at the same time, they do not necessarily are being seen rather as facilitators. They are seen more like, okay, you are teacher, do your work. I'm administrator, I will do the work the way I know. To me, this is a disjointed effort. In other words, that we are not going to give the 100% support to the changes that we are trying to make. So the issue which I'm trying to develop, and this is where probably I was today very happy that I was able to hear the macro level perspective from three very, very learned persons. I wanted to say about the micro perspective. Now, one last thing, and that last thing I would say is that private universities where chancellors are the promoters of that particular organization, in my opinion, those particular people should also be taking a little bit seat differently. Instead of just becoming the first or the last point of approval, these people should become the mentors, the supporters, and the university should be given back to the professionals, management professionals, the people who are knowing the business of running a university in a professional manner. The same way in the case of the state universities or the universities which are funded, I think politicians or any other people, they should also be perhaps given a different role, but not necessarily a vice chancellor role, because the role of a vice chancellor of a university in the new education policy is substantially different than the role of the vice chancellor that we had seen in the past. In the past, they were more like landlords or more like, jamidar. It is my humble suggestion that let them become the first servant of the university of which they are the chancellor or the vice chancellor. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, for giving your views. And because of the paucity of time, I will not like to summarize what he has said, but he is very clear in one way, and that is that we should commercialize or professionalize the education system by appointing CEO or CO equivalent to the vice chancellors in the university, so that the vice chancellors, those who have been appointed, they can concentrate on more on academic side, and the CEO or the CO will be looking after the marketing or giving the satisfaction to the students, and definitely in turn to the parents of the student, so that the students will not run away here and there, and they will concentrate on their studies. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Now, my first question goes to Professor Rao. Professor Rao, you are talking about higher education, fine, but as for the new education, National Education Policy 2020, it starts from the primary schools, and when we have to change the higher education, we have to start from the very beginning. And this policy says, according to this policies, 50 schools every week for 15 years to be started. Is it practical, possible in country like India, where already those existing schools are there in a very, very, I will not use the word, but in a very bad shape, which we all know. So we'll be able to start the 50 schools every week for 15 years, and 50 schools means 50 principals, 200, 300 teachers every week we require for these 50 schools. My question to you is it possible or not?
Yeah,
Professor Rao.
so Dr. Saxena already touched upon this point. So when you want to increase the GR from 26 to 50 in a span of 50 years, we have to definitely increase the capacity. And we have the population growth rate, and we have so much of say population looking for the education. And 50 is not a big number, in fact, because it is going on. Every year we have so many schools opening up, and say the competition is building up. So naturally, that is, in my opinion, I don't think it is a serious problem to start with the new colleges and having a new employment in it. But the issue is, as Mohanlal Agrawal and Subramanian sir also mentioned, how to make this system more effective, more qualitative, and how to raise the standards of instruction, how to have the right human resource injected into the system. That is the serious problem. Say we have if you look at the numbers, though we have large number of institutions in the country, and most of the institutions are, say, manpower is not sufficiently done. And also because of the long-term contract and what Mohanlal Agrawal said, or the job security, what you say, or the involvement of the political system into the human resource activity, we could not able to have the satisfactory level standards of teaching community. So competency building, training, retraining, re-retraining, this is important, because the sole, the strength of any education institution is the teacher.
Okay,
so if teachers are good, the students will automatically get attracted.
So according to you, it is possible to start. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Rao. Now my question goes to Professor Dr. P. Subramania. Professor Dr. P. Subramania, do you think teachers' mindset shift is possible? See, right now, whatsoever existing teachers are there, you have to change their mind shift, as you have also mentioned. Is it possible at this stage? Or you will be appointing all new teachers for the implementing of this policy? Professor Dr. P. Subramania, please.
It's a very right question posed by you. First of all, government should take proper and adequate steps to fill up unfilled vacancies as expeditiously as possible. That's why I told, never put the cart before the horse. In most of the universities throughout India, 2/3 are working on temporary basis, stopgap or something like that, or hourly, clock hour basis, something like that. Only 1/3 UGC paid regular teachers. This creates a lot of problem. Another thing is, can we change the mindset of the people? Dr. Mohan Agarwal rightly put it. I fully endorse him. Maybe without any offending note to the teaching fraternity, I'm telling. Unless we create a kind of sense of insecurity in the hearts and minds of these people, they will say, I can change, but I refuse to change. That kind of adamant or that kind of attitude must be re-engineered, or it should be changed. It is possible only when we create a sense of insecurity in the hearts and minds of these so-called senior, regular, permanent teachers, so that they will rise to the occasion and they will be in the rally team. Otherwise, there will be a problem. These two things, yes, it's possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Now my question is to Professor Dr. Girish Saxena. Please unmute yourself, Professor Saxena. Please unmute. Professor Saxena, please unmute. No, please, you have to unmute. Professor Saxena is unmuting, so I will pose my question to Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, as per the policy, 6% of GDP. Do you think the 6% of GDP is sufficient for next 15 years? Professor, please unmute yourself, Dr. Agrawal.
Yes, it is, sufficient, because I believe that educational institutions should also do their own fundraising also, their own resourcing also. All universities throughout the world, they have a fundraising program from the alumni, from any other resources. So why we should be all the time expecting resources from the state or from the central government, who have many other known as well as unpredictable priorities at that particular time? So this is quite okay. What is not okay is that the universities do not have any system of raising their own resources.
For that, my counter question to you is, you have mentioned about the foreign universities. There the employability is very high, percentage of employability is very high. And India, as Professor Saxena has mentioned, 85%, or I don't know, one of the panelists has mentioned, 85% of our students are unemployable. I think Professor Rao has mentioned. So if 85% unemployable students, alumni, how they are going to raise the funds, which seems to be impossible to raise the funds?
Now, that is an excellent point, but at the same time, we are talking about the past. I thought that what is Professor Subramaniam said is the way to go. He's saying analyze the past, look at the future, and project the future. So in my opinion, this internships, the employability part will take care. One more thing, sir. I know we are running short of time. I think we should also impose some kind of expectation from the industry also. I mean, Professor Ramon Rao was hitting the nail on the head that industry academic institution framework is not in the right place. I think we should ask all institutions of business to provide some funding to the universities in their area also.
See, Professor, I would like to, we have a lots of questions on this CSR funds, etc. This we will discuss in the next program. Professor Saxena, can you unmute, because important questions for you. No, you are muting yourself, a video, you are switching off the video. I just want to have the unmute, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you unmute it yourself, sir? Can you unmute him?
No, I don't think so, because I have tried from here. It is
because mobile is always a very, very touch sensitive.
So
he might be doing something wrong from that point of view.
Yes, it is not unmuting, so that is the problem. Anyways, so my last, yes, Dr. Saxena, if you can now switch on your video. Switch on your video, please. Yes. Now, question to you is, Professor Saxena, is all higher education institute to become multidisciplinary institutions, is it practicable? Is it implementable in India, when you are also saying that all what the private universities and colleges are doing, just giving the degrees without proper infrastructure, without proper training? And if we will ask them to start all multidisciplinary institutions, then what is going to the future of the country?
This is very difficult. Goel Saab, this is very difficult. This is very difficult. Multidisciplinary they are planning 100 multidisciplinary integrated universities. That is possible, but multidisciplinary, all institutions in the country, it is going to be very, very difficult. You know how many B.Ed colleges and professional colleges are working now in India? Pharmacy colleges, nursing colleges, physiotherapy colleges, B.Ed colleges, so many types of colleges running under 21 regulatory bodies, and no facilities. My experience is I had been vice chancellor of those two universities where more than 1,000 affiliated colleges were with the university, and the situation there you can very well visualize.
Okay.
Teachers are not being paid full salary, classes are not being held, students come only for the examination. Sometimes examination practicals are also held without students. So many irregularities are happening in these colleges and universities. And to my mind, it is a very difficult job where the universities have to play a very key role. The government has to take strict action. The central government and the state government have to provide lot of funds to these colleges and universities. Then only something can be done. This is my
Okay.
feeling.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Dr. Saxena. So today you have seen the educationist, the experienced person, learned person's views about the National Education Policy 2020. All of them agrees that it is implementable, but is there, and that but is only can be removed if we all, the civil society, all the stakeholders take pledge that for the future of the nation, future of our students, future of our wards, we all should come forward to see that this National Education Policy 2020 should be implementable, even if it is 70-75%, but it should be. Then only we can say that India can become a global leader, India can become a Vishguru. Thank you very much for giving your such a very, very enlightening views. I'm sure our viewers might be very, very knowledgeable and enlightening after this program. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is every day to give a serious topic. But as promised earlier, and which we are doing for last almost 3 months, every Sunday is to relax. But relaxation means our top term is edutainment. And tomorrow, that Sunday is there. So tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goel is Jaane Pehchane Geet, so that you can relax with the retro songs. And my guest artist is Miss Deepa Ganesh. She's a renowned virtual and radio singer from Singapore. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Rao. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. P. Subramania. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Girish Saxena. And thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, for joining and giving your enlightening views. Thank you, all the viewers. For